David Patterson, you're wrong. Sorry. For those guys who watch the dude in blue, he is wrong. The Nissan Z is not going to be the de facto savior of the sports car world. And we'll explain why here.
All right. So, everybody's talking about the new Z. Everybody's seen the new drop. The new Z's out there for everybody. And kudos to Nissan, by the way, for making it look the business.
Yeah, it looks good.
It looks really like the business. It is classic Z car goodness mixed in with like some 90s Z car goodness.
So, hot take here.
Modern.
Hot take here. Is the new Z styling better or worse than the original 05 Mustang redesign styling when it came out?
Better, I think.
You think so?
It hit a couple of really big early Z points.
Okay.
So it's got the early. I think most of the Japanese / car guys in general, but Japanese car guys especially, would all agree the 240Z is widely considered one of the best looking Japanese cars ever made.
Absolutely. That's on this side of $200,000 at this point.
Yeah.
200 GT is still gorgeous.
Well, sure, but you know what I'm saying. As affordable Japanese coupes go, that was one of the best looking coupes they made.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think it's also
they got that rear quarter.
And even the taillights. So the taillights were kind of a controversy because they were based off the Z31, right? Sorry,
Z32.
Z32. So it's the mid 90s. But I think that was, of all the styling cues, that one was the more appropriate one to bring because that styling is also based off of the 280ZX taillights.
Yep. Yeah. It started in the 280s and then kind of got a little weird in the Z31s and then got perfected, I think, in the Z32. But yeah, it's the right cue. The hood bulge, the fenders, everything else, like it's the right style. Just killing it.
And everyone complains about that front grille. They're like, oh, when you're looking dead on the car, it's just a giant square blob. Take the chrome bumper off of the 240Z. What do you have? It's a giant square opening.
Yep.
It's correct. If you want, you can create a stylistic piece of chrome that goes over the front. You'll have the split nose bumper that you want. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm with it.
It might exist.
Also, the 3 analog gauges on the top of the center stack. Yeah, solid.
Now, Fitment Industry actually brought this up. They didn't put the correct gauges in there, however, because I think they have a turbine speed gauge.
They do, and I've had this argument from a few people, and here's my take on that. For those of you that weren't fans from back in the day, as it were, right? I was a Z31 guy back in the day. We had digital dashes, right? Digital dash Z31s. Yeah, where my people at?
That's the shit.
So do you know what 2 gauges were on a digital dash Z31?
Yeah, they had the boost in RPM, right?
No. That's not on the. That's just the regular bar graph tack that just had taller segments for.
Which is cool and retro and synth noise Tron legacy awesomeness.
Yeah, in the center stack though.
Okay.
In the center stack, they had 2 digital gauges. Nope, voltage was over on the main cache.
Okay.
I will. I'm sure Craig will do some magic, and
I'll have it here.
Have a picture of it, the Z31 digital dash, because you really need to see it for the correct imagery. Yeah. But anyway, so you had boost and a G meter of all things. Yeah, you heard me.
I love it. Well, the G meter was on the Here we go. Cars and Bids. Actually, Doug DeMuro has one.
Has he got a digi one? It's different for the digital dash cars.
Here, I'm going to link you to it in our little chat box here. But it has 2 large submarine-looking scopes. With a neon green, and everyone who's of age, and so I'm talking about like back when computers had the black screen with the green fonts or whatever else, you know exactly what this looks like because it is that, which is perfect in every way.
Right. So we'll probably have to cut this down a little bit, whatever. So my point is to say, for everybody saying that turbine speed is silly and ridiculous, maybe it is. It's not out of place though.
Yeah.
Z cars have always had those gauges in the center stack.
Yeah. I'm just saying that like as a performance enthusiast, I'd want boost, I'd want oil pressure, and I'd want coolant temperature or voltage because that matters.
Sure, I'm assuming, now I haven't looked in depth, I'm assuming it has those on the main instrument panel, just like the old Z's did, right? They had oil temperature, oil pressure, and a couple other things on the main instrument panel.
Maybe it's in the cluster somewhere.
Yeah. And yeah, those are kind of like for funsies, but yeah, I'm kind of cool with it. I think the gauges for funsies up on the top of the center stack are
Hmm.
period and correct,
Yeah, they
and
definitely
it
look the
fits the
part.
vibe. So now that I've said all my good praises about things that I think they did right, let's talk about where they went wrong.
Do you want to start off with the fact that it's a 22-year-old chassis and engine that has been about around for what 5 years now, and there's nothing new? It's a partsman special vehicle outside the
Okay,
body.
so let me get in here. You're right.
Okay.
It's partsman special on both the motor and the chassis. Daimler would like a word correction. Stellantis would like a word with you about you can keep using the same old stuff with incremental improvements and still make it work good.
No, you
I mean,
can
I'm
talk to
just
God
saying.
because Stellantis does not own that chassis.
Sure. I
Well,
mean,
okay, so
three owners ago for now.
here is that. Well, it was Daimler, wasn't it? It
Yeah, it
was
was
the
Daimler
LX.
when that chassis came
For those
out.
of you who don't know, yeah, for those of you who don't know, 05, 0506 with the Magnum and the Charger original ones was a
Yeah.
Daimler product, and it actually used a Mercedes transmission rear end. Anyways, Nissan Z. Um, so I'm going to say this about this car too: that everyone is they're kind of glossing over the fact that this vehicle is actually nothing new. It's just a new. It's basically old. It's old bones over new body. That being said, Jason Kamisa actually brought this up. That's not a bad thing because the old Z chassis
It's
was,
good.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't epic, and I'm a snob because S2000 Miata RX-8, but it was good. It was mechanical feeling, double A arm front suspension, multi-link rear. It had good camber curves. The car was kind of heavy, and then the NAV6 kind of lacked a little bit of torque towards the end of its lifetime. When it first came out, it was awesome. I'll link a video here. Doug has a great video about why the Z was actually great.
Yeah.
Um, but the chassis was known for actually having proper road handling capabilities, and it did go toe in toe with the RX-8 and the S2000, despite the weight. And even if it is a rehash, and even if they use a derivative of the CD09 transmission, and even if they use the same was it 230 rear end differential,
Right.
it's
Right.
stuff
That's my thing.
it's stuff that's known to work, and it's going to be good.
Yeah. The CD09, the R230. Sure, you can hate on them being old, but you know what? They work. And they work
Hmm.
really well.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
and it,
the new vr
mhm,
30 DDTT, make sure I get that one right, uh,
mhm.
is, while not new, it's been out in several of the Infinity products for a while, and
Mhm.
traces its roots back to the VR38,
Which everyone knows.
which everyone loves.
Hmm.
I mean, we've gone on this on a couple other places. I'm not a fan of the noise they make. That's just me.
Chevrolet.
That's yeah. That said, it makes great power. Should make great torque and a great torque curve and everything else.
Hmm.
Um, not much to fault here,
Hmm.
but and where I think they have gone catastrophically wrong here
Oh,
is that it's
say why.
priced really, really close to the Q60.
Yeah. So me and Steven had thoughts about this too. If I think it's actually going to be a $45,000 car, after all is said and done, not MSRP wise. The problem with this though is that the price range that we think it's going to be sold at, it's going to be a more sporty variant of something that already exists, and something that already exists is still going to be a better everything else car other than manual
Yeah,
in every regard. I don't know. I don't know. What they come out MSRP and it's $32,000. Is that going to be the sweet spot right above the
I don't
BRZ?
think so. I've seen from what I've seen on the
Hmm.
interwebs,
Hmm.
it's going to start in the low 40s.
It's too high, man.
I agree. So here's where I think that this could have gone really well for them.
Right?
Uh, and they talked about this before the car came out, and they kept saying they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They make that motor. So the Q60 comes in a lower trim variant, the 3.0T, and then the Red Sport, which is the 400 horse variant.
Mm-hmm.
And It's like a $10,000 price gap, which is not just the motor. There's other options, but it's like a 10 grand price gap between them.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they had a 400 horse Z at the low 40s and a 300 horse twin turbo Z in the low 30s, that they'd
Mm-hmm.
have something to talk about here.
Pause.
Because it could be very competitive with the BRZ and a lot of other stuff.
Pause. I'm going to throw my curveball in. So I'm an advocate. I like turbos and boost, but I'm an advocate of NA power. It's romantic and awesome and mighty. Nissan has a 3.8 liter VQ motor they put in their Frontier that could be tuned up just enough to make it now a 340 horsepower NA model that they could slap in there. And guess what? Now your Nissan Z has a base model that is also maybe 200 pounds lighter because it doesn't need turbo coolers and air to water coolers and all that junk.
That could be an interesting option as well. But that's my thing, I think, is they need some variation of a cheaper base model. More base. Yeah, that's the right word.
Yep.
I promise y'all, I went to school.
Way back in the day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I think we need a more base model, and I think they need to spread the gap more between the Z and the Q60, because right now it's really looking like if you have any kind of option pack on a Z, you're getting really close into Q60 money. And I haven't seen one in person yet, so reserve judgment on that. But I think that the Q60 is going to be better put together and nicer because they're great looking cars.
Definitely gonna have better sound insulation.
You start looking at like, man, for another $3,000 up over the Z, I could have the Q60 with all the leather and doodads
but without a manual.
Let's be honest here, man. And I'm all the kudos, right, to Nissan for doing it, right? 150%. The take rate's not going to be that high. It's just not.
Yep. This is
also massive kudos because Nissan is the only Japanese car company that has independently developed a sports car.
You say that, but this thing's 20 years old, dude.
So what's Toyota making?
Subaru,
that's right. Nothing. Subaru's making something for them. Yeah. Toyota's making nothing. That's what I heard. Mazda had to co-develop. Mazda had to co-develop the ND with Fiat.
No.
Okay, what? They borrowed some of Fiat's money to make it happen?
Yes, Fiat paid them.
Sure. Same deal. It's not, man.
Is the Spider not a great car?
Oh, 100%. But I'm saying it's not a pure, right? Nissan's the only company that's making a sports car all on their own. And they're trying to turn around the dregs of Nissan from Renault ownership back into something respectable.
Yeah.
And I'm about it. Like, I'm a Nissan fanboy from back in the day. I hope that this works for them. I really do.
Yeah, I do too.
Realistically, I don't think it's going to work for them, but I really hope that it does.
Yeah. I have some minor qualms about it too because I am not a Nissan fanboy. However, I've owned a bunch of Nissan products, and everyone likes Skylines and Seamas and Leopards. And if you guys don't know what those vehicles are, you're not a fanboy. That being said, though, like I have some qualms about it because some things that, like, and no one's test driven this car yet. It's just been a press release and some photos, so we're still waiting for the actual vehicle to come out and get the raving reviews. I have a feeling it's going to have the same problem that the BRZ has, or the GR86, is that it's going to have a budget interior, and knowing Nissan's history with cheaper car interiors, it's going to fall apart quickly. That engine, Patterson brought this up, the dude in blue, by the way, he brought this up. He doesn't know if the engine's going to have the same tuning capability as the B54 is the super engine.
Oh, so that we can fairly confidently answer. Because the VR30DDTT, man, I swear to God, I keep wanting to say DET from when I had my Z32. But anyway, so that engine in the Q60, in the QX70, a few other things, right? The tuning on that's pretty well documented. It makes a bunch of power, makes a crap ton of torque across an incredible 1,600 RPM.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's what peak torque is. It's nuts.
It's got the same flow dynamics and turbo sizing as the EcoBoost Ford motors did, which you can tune those up and just make torque on torque on torque, which is good because that's what matters really the most when going
Yeah, everybody
fast.
hates on that not making like interesting looking dyno curves, and it doesn't. But man, it moves cars with authority.
Dude, that's the reason why we like their V8 so much, is that they make the torque plateau, and then you just pull and pull and pull and pull. Um,
Especially with the way modern automatics are, and you can set up your shift points right and everything. Like they just don't stop pulling.
Dude, so like everyone wants the manual. I want a manual, right? Manual party, right? But look what happened to the Mustang when they got the automatic 10 speed, right? Imagine the Z now with its automatic. Say they put in a dual clutch, probably not, probably will. Maybe they've already said that what they put into it. But imagine that thing tuned up on like E85 with the 7 speed DCT. That thing is going to be a rocket, especially if they use GTRs, the same engineers who did the launch for the GTR on the new Z.
Yeah,
It's going to have to, because the Supra's fast. So like it's going to be the much performer. Here's where we get into the whole why I think Dude in Blue is wrong. He did not mention the other sports cars that are in the same field in the price range, right? He talked about the Miata, he talked about the GR86, he talked about the Supra, right? We're not going to bring up the NSX because that's kind of untouchable. There are two other cars that are cheaper and offer more performance, and I would say a better aftermarket and a more proven history, that are already out, that are still making waves, and that's the Mustang and Camaro. Now, I get a bunch of boos from everyone who's all JDM this life, yo. First off, Nissan's half produced inside the U.S., so suck it. Um, but here's where I get on about, right? So at, what did we say, Steven? At $27,000 MSRP, you can get yourself a fairly touted up Mustang EcoBoost. Yes, I said EcoBoost. That makes 310 foot-pounds of torque, and it motivates that car rather well.
yeah,
For around $32,000 fully loaded, you can get yourself the Turbo 4 1LE Camaro, which is very good. It's very good. And it goes up from there, of course, with engine displacement sizes and V8s and whatnot. So I don't know if the Z is going to sell well based off of where it's going to be priced at, because it's got so much cross competition. You'd have to want the Z specifically to get the Z. And oh, by the way, the Camaro and the Mustang come in manuals and all motor options.
yeah. I think mm, it's a very slightly, but it's a different group of cars.
It is, and yeah, obviously, if you're a Z nerd, you're going to be about it. Like
Oh,
obviously, like
100%. Right. But
that's the reason
disregarding
why.
that, and I
Yeah.
am a Z nerd, so I'm a little biased here. But the Mustang, the Camaro, and the older back in the day, the G35s and G37s,
Hmm.
they're just different, right? They have back seats, they have reasonable sized trunks. They're kind of livable cars, like to do other stuff besides hoon in.
Yeah.
Z's, Miatas, S2000s, all that stuff, those were made with just one function in mind.
Yep.
They drive
Yep.
good. That's all they do. They drive good.
Yep.
And there is a beautiful, beautiful purity of purpose in that.
The purity, as they say out in Aussie land.
Right. Right. And I'm really hoping we'll see how it comes out when the Z comes out.
Hmm.
I think that is where the Supra has missed the mark
Okay.
as far as being lambasted. Besides the whole, yeah, all the haterade talking about BMW engine, sure, whatever. BMW builds great sixes, they do, but it's missing the soul, the mark
Hmm.
for being a purpose-built machine. And I'm hoping that's where they hit the Z with. Right, the
Yep.
Miata and the 86 have both made great strides for themselves and made decent sales. Despite by the numbers, they are not the best things in their categories, respectively.
No.
Like to Craig's mention, right? A 10-speed EcoBoost Mustang, or what would that be, a 1LE? Yeah, the Hypo Mustang, which would be like 32, or a 1LE 4-cylinder Camaro. I think you can still get that, right? The 1LE 4-banger
Yep.
package.
For now.
Either one of those
Chevy,
would
don't fuck this
absolutely
up.
trounce a BRZ in any spec for pretty similar money, actually.
Yeah.
But it's
For
not
that's
quite the same. It's faster,
Yeah.
but it's
It's
not
not
the
the same
same.
seat of the pants feel.
Right.
Yeah.
And if Nissan
And
gets that part
well,
right,
a lot of
they
that.
might have something here.
Hmm. Yep. Now that's where we get into the actual like what is the Z, right? So we already know that it's based off the FM chassis, and we already know that the engine is based off of their VR30 DD TT, right?
Yeah,
And I'm
it's hard to say, isn't
presuming
it?
they're yeah. Well, so we're used to DETT, and if you guys are older like we are, again we keep mentioning this, you know that D was for dual over cam, E was for electronic fuel injection. Now we got direct fuel injection, so now it's two Ds, so it's DD TT. So we already know that they're going to use that, right? I have a fairly good hunch, like downright, I'll just say it's going to be a CDO9 derived transmission, whether they go back in there and try to redesign it again. Nissan has their own in-house transmission company. They're not like Mazda and Toyota, who have to hire out to ASIN, which I think actually ASIN is Toyota, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we know they're probably going to use the R230 rear differential because that's what they use in everything rear-wheel drive nowadays. It is kind of like the A6 in that it's a parts bin special with a new skin on it, which is going to be good. The big question here is going to be that electronic power steering unit, because something that gave the old Z, the 370Z and 350Z, kind of its old school charm was the fact that it was an all mechanical car, right? You had a mechanical clutch, there was no lane keep assist. They had auto rev matching on the transmission, but it was still manual transmission, and it had a hydraulic power steering rack, which means you felt what the front wheels were doing. Given this new car with the EPS and coming from a car that had it in my RX-8, they have an opportunity to do really well with it, but to also not do really well with it. Which, from what I'm reading on the Q50s and 60s, that it's kind of that car contends with two issues, and that's it's not as fun to drive because it's super fucking heavy, and it's got vague steering feel. So they're kind of going through BMW's early
So
years where they're trying to figure out how EPS works.
I think that's partially the problem. The other problem is that the front suspension of the Q50 and Q60 and the Beamers
Mm-hmm.
of the same era that you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about are
Yeah.
set up in all variants to accept an all-wheel drive system, which forces some compromises
Yup.
in your front suspension setup.
For the sake of saving money, you don't have bespoke parts anymore. You have, what do they call them? Modular
Right,
platforms.
and even if your car is not all-wheel drive, if the suspension is set up to accept the all-wheel drive componentry, that forces compromises in the front end
Yep.
with various things. Um,
Yep.
and like I said,
Ooh,
if they
that
do
will
it
be
right with the
interesting.
Z, that could be epic. What's that?
Yeah, so you bring that up a good point, because like if they don't make bespoke parts for the Z and make it specifically a Z front wheel drive or a rear wheel drive purposeful, that could be a killer too. Like it could be good, but it won't be great. Everyone wants something
Right,
to be great.
right.
Now,
Now
however,
that's it.
if they
That's
copy and
going to be the
pasted
real
three,
question, right?
okay,
Because the 370 suspension is honestly the front suspension of the 370
yeah,
is not bad at all.
no,
It's quite good.
yeah,
So if they just do incremental upgrades to that, some material changes, some stiffening, and all that, and it's just like the 370, but 10% better,
hmm
that would be quite outstanding, actually.
it could. I actually joked about this on Instagram. By the way, we have an Instagram page. If you're not following, please follow us. But they could
Sure.
have actually literally taken the 370Z roller skates, the front rear subframes with the engine transmission, slapped underneath the new body, and I think people would have been crazy about it because they got what they wanted the most, which wasn't more power or more engine. Really, it was a new body, a new interior.
Yeah, although I do think having a turbo 300Z is a thing again. Like that's going to be good, right? So that's it. Tell us what you think. Is the new Z going to be a flop? Going to be a win? We're all going to see, obviously, but
hmm
I'm hoping it's the savior of Nissan's fun cars.
Yep, and this very much could be the last. And I'll emphasize this until the day I die. This very much could be the last all single manufacturer sports car that we see
Yeah,
until you get to like Porsche numbers, because obviously Porsche is Porsche and blah blah blah. But like this could be it. If Nissan and Mitsubishi actually join up and hook fins like they're supposed to be doing, Mitsubishi Z Lancer.
ugh, not sure how I
Yeah,
feel about that.
I have more trust in that than I do about Chevy and Honda getting together and being buddy buddy. That disgusts me. It disgusts Scotty Kilmer too. Tangent, but yeah.
Scotty Gilmore tangents. Um. So anyway, yeah, let us know what you're thinking, and we're gonna see where this goes. I'm hopeful for Nissan, and hopefully we'll see some more like I don't know Sentra SERs and you know, 200 SXs, something.
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah,
Bring it back, Nissan. Bring back the fun, sporty stuff.
yeah. They had. This is also another tangent, and we'll end it there. But do you remember the IDX concept?
Yeah,
That would have been awesome.
right?
It
Nissan
just
had so
needed to,
much potential to be good.
all you had to do was put in the Juke drivetrain, and sure, it's front wheel drive. At it. Like, that would have been
Yeah.
awesome. Don't fuck this up, Nissan. Thank you so much for listening to the Broken Axle Podcast. If you enjoyed us, please leave a comment and like and subscribe for more.
And if you want to help us out, we've got a new merch line. You can check the links below and follow our social media at the Broken Axle Podcast.
And you can find me on Instagram at nomadic.wheelman.
And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as JustCan'tDrive55.
For the rest of us, hug your kids and call your mama.
And go bust some knuckles.